Hello, I'm Martin Dougiamas. I'm the founder of Moodle, the open source and free learning management system that's been used around the world as a de facto learning platform for the past 20 years by hundreds of millions of people, including 2/3 of universities. But I'm not here to talk about Moodle or sell Moodle. I will say, as this is an ADL conference, I am very proud to see Moodle being included in the total learning architecture model, and to see it being used by the Departments of Defense in the US and other countries around the world, including my own, Australia. But for today, in the next 10 minutes, I would just like to reflect a little on learning in general and paint a picture of a possible global infrastructure that could support learning optimally into the far future. So, education basically is two main activities. The first activity is teaching, and to provide conditions for learners' brains to learn something. And this is why we write content, we give lectures, we make videos, we write books, and so on. Of course, we can't know if this works. Learning is inside other people's brains, and it's completely invisible to us. And so we have the second activity, which is assessment, to actually know if these brains actually learned anything. And assessment means we can all move on to the next level of improvement, and assessment is usually what makes learning more formal. Now, interestingly, my feeling is that from a student's perspective, formal learning is usually regarded as fairly boring and routine, while informal learning tends to be a lot more fun. And it is a lot more common. Intrinsic motivations are often more powerful than extrinsic ones. Now, this is obvious once you look at the internet and you can see that the sheer amount of informal learning that's going on and how it works when it works well. So look at the social media of all kinds, but especially things like YouTube or TikTok or podcasts, where great content is arranged into feeds. And what we see there is a combination of two things. We have individuals who make a feed of interesting new content. You can call them educators, because they are, even though they might usually be called influencers and things like that. Secondly, there's AI algorithms that connect those creators with followers, which are learners. And these two things work together to give a very personal connection between the teacher and the learner. Those teachers themselves are often learning too, which makes you even closer to them as you come along on the journey with them, and you're learning while they're learning. And that's very fun, it feels natural, and it is much more of a mentor relationship, or like learning from your parents. So it feels natural. Now, there's problems here too, of course. A lot of this stuff is in little bubbles, and it gets very specialized, and it promotes separation rather than connections. It can. And as you get disconnected from the wider world, there's some pretty terrible learning going on, and we've seen plenty of evidence of that on the internet. So how can we build education technology that promotes the best dynamics that we're seeing here without taking on the bad aspects? Well, before I go deeper on that, there's a couple more things that I believe are crucial when thinking about technical solutions on this kind of scale. Firstly, quality education is a basic human right, so it needs to be accessible to all, and that means no cost. Very important to really have effective results from education. Secondly, the contexts also can vary a lot. There's different cultures, different languages, different levels, so it needs to be super flexible. This is the definition of openness to everyone and for everyone. What else have we built like this, you might be saying? Well, let me think. There's a pretty famous thing. In 1969, it was held by the Department of Defense. It's called the Internet. And from the very equitable open design of the Internet, which still exists today in a very similar form, all those really interesting technologies are not controlled by companies or any legal entity. There's an IP stack, there's the web and Linux, DNS, email. All of these are open technologies that even the so-called big tech relies on, but really what the list I just gave you is the big tech. The reason we all depend on those things is because they have very little risk. They'll be around for a long time, as they have already. Those open technologies are what allow privacy and security and true freedom to innovate. So it seems inevitable to me that we should move that quality of the open technologies up the stack into the education level. To build a universal open education technology platform that's owned by no one, that is as free as we can make it, free from the risk of commercial practices, free from the corrupting influence of private money, and free even from government interference, so that we can expect this to be with us for life. And so as students and teachers, we can happily invest ourselves into this platform, which will in turn make it a much stronger platform. That's the key point. And I think the open source projects give us some clues to those solutions, but many of them are built on technologies from 10 or 20 years ago, and they're not taking full advantage of the computer science that we have today. Two things in particular are all of the work being done on distributed and federated models, including CPU and data. And the second one is the amazing advances in AI, even in the last 2 to 3 years, with large language models, where we really seem to be working out how the brain works. So what do I think this future infrastructure should contain? Let me tell you the 5 components, and I'll give you a website where you can go and read more about it afterwards. So number 1, as I said, this thing can't have risk. It can't run on any one server or be run by any one organization, because there is no organization that everyone in the world will be able to trust for the long term. So this needs to be a distributed, federated cloud across the internet, supported by millions of servers and thousands of organizations, with data encrypted really well, duplicated across the whole system, and tied together with really good, simple set of strong standards. And there are precedents for that. You know, look at email, look at blockchain, etc. Just for some, and there's also a lot more. Secondly, when it comes to content, we need systems that can curate the vast collection of open education resources that are coming online. In future, many of these will be created by AI, and we really need to verify and determine the quality of them and organize them to make them useful and available to every single person. So these systems themselves need to be open, because the processes have to be transparent and like Wikipedia, but oriented towards all types of educational resources. Thirdly, every one of us as a learner should be able to have our own space out in the cloud that we can trust for life, for free. And in this space, we have our own trustworthy AI that is like our personal mentor. It knows us, it fits education into our calendar, it assists us in our learning journey, it suggests opportunities, it stores our verifiable credentials that we've gathered, and helps us share them with the world and with employers. And it works for us. Fourthly, as an educator, we need a similar kind of thing for our education spaces. We need lifelong classrooms for life, for free. And this builds on that dynamic I was talking about in the social networks, where you have a feed, effectively, and you're able to give different instances of that classroom for different purposes. All your activities in there, all your OERs in there, all your learners connect there, and the AI is helping you with all of that and managing the content and the activities, making assessments happen, issuing verified credentials where necessary, and so on. And finally, we need spaces for organizations, large and small, to tie all these other things together for particular groups of people. And that can be a company or a school or a university or a defense organization. Again, you have AIs in there that help manage learning and development and make that happen. Now, the challenge is to build all this in a truly open way based on that core set of the right open standards and the right foundations to make it last for the next 50 years. Why not? And that's the platform that I see Moodle and many other EdTech solutions migrating to in the future, a common platform of standards. Now, for that, we all need to work together. So we need to cut through the BS. We need to think about ourselves as one species living on one little planet, facing the same big problems, and realizing the power of what we can do together if we're not constantly trying to undercut each other in the marketplace. As we've done so many times with lots of basic essentials like electricity and water and things like that. So I've started an association called Open EdTech that has brought together working groups to develop that vision in detail, and we would love your involvement and support if you're interested. So please come to openedtech.global, take a look, reach out to me directly. I'm really happy to talk to anyone interested in these sorts of issues. Thank you for listening and for the opportunity to share my ideas and have a great conference.